Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about an issue that has been rampant, and we've seen the effects all around us in a stark way as far as disinformation is concerned and its overall impact. We've seen a report come out by the Digital Rights Foundation which highlights disinformation, political ads and accountability during the 2024 Pakistan general elections. We'll be talking about the role of disinformation as we've seen with regard to rise in gender-based violence, deep fakes, also disparities in platform responses overall, the impact of this. We'd also be talking about what it means as far as our political process is concerned, the rise in polarization is concerned, defaming of institutions is concerned, all of this and the impact of it overall on society at this time. I have with me Zahid Gishkori, who's a senior journalist. Thank you for joining us. We have with us Mehtab Haider, who's a senior journalist, and Muneeb Qadir, who is also a legal analyst, a lawyer. Thank you so much for being with us today. Zahid Sahab, before I go to the other guests, Zahid Sahab, if you've looked at this report, it raises various concerns and issues that we've been talking about from time to time with regard to political parties, with regard to the way that disinformation is used to discredit political parties, discredit individuals, discredit institutions. We really don't know where the buck stops at this point. How do you look at this report? How do you look at the overall effect of it? And the fact that it seems to have increased over time.
Well, thank you very much, Mahrukh. Actually, I could not hear your intro. What exactly we are talking about, the report, and can you give me a little brief about it so I can comment on it?
For your, because you couldn't hear. Basically, I want to talk about, of course, we've seen the rise in this issue as far as disinformation is concerned. We've also seen the way it impacts not just individuals, but political parties, political process, overall the narrative of political parties, and then, it results in overall polarization in society. With regard to this, how do you look at it? And we know that, there is legislation now, and of course the reaction to that legislation. How do you look at it?
You mean the current situation of Pakistan political arena like this? Because I just joined you, so I could not hear what exactly was going on here in your program. So that's why I wanted a background. But I think you mean by the current situation going on, political situation in the country?
We've spoken, if you've looked at this report, it highlights the role of disinformation with regard, we've seen in the general elections. We've also, of course, the rise in gender-based violence, deep fakes, and, overall, as far as disparities in platform responses, whether we look at, different social platforms also, and the way that different information is rolled out and the way that it impacts, like I said before also, not just individuals, but political parties, their narrative, the way it shapes it, the way it destroys it in some cases. How do you look at that impact on society at this time?
Obviously, this is a very important topic. I myself did a program about fake news and fake narrative, how it hurt Pakistan, particularly as a state, and the global index report suggests that obviously Pakistan and India, they are facing fake news and fake narrative as a number one challenge. And in the coming 2 years, it would not hurt only every corner of the society, but also the overall situation and the creating political unrest and challenging a different front for the state. I think this fake narrative currently, particularly with Pakistan in the past 2.5 years, if you go through it, that the recent reports of the government suggest that this is not only hurting here in the country, but the narrative being built against the state abroad in different countries by the hostile agencies, by the dissent, sitting abroad, and creating unrest here in Pakistan. So, recently, if you go through that Federal Investigation Agency, cyber crime wing received more than 40,000 complaints about these fake news and narratives uh, being built by the state, entire state element. And these complaints were received by FIA. But obviously, Pakistani authorities have limited scope and capacity building problems. So this not only is creating chaos, political unrest, and obviously hurting the every institution. The first number one, if you just go through this, that recently drive suggests that not only Pakistani institutions, particularly the defense institutions, there was a narrative from different countries, and it looks like at some stage of time, just go through two events, Mahrukh. The one is built after May 9th event, incidental attacks in the country since last year. And the other one, what happened at D Chalk about this narrative. What exactly the truth disappeared somewhere. We don't know that what exactly the truth was, but the narrative built by different elements, particularly, it's suggested that maybe these such elements are being allegedly backed by PTI, or at least PTI wants this against the state institution, and they sometime even come on the record that this created a confusion, this created a mess against the institution and key constitutional position holders in Pakistan. So this is very dangerous, I think, in a society where education remains the dharma. The less educated people obviously think this is the true fact, and that's why the institution.
Zahid Sahab, let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Mehtab Haider Sahab. Mehtab Sahab, this story, it's your story. You have seen, could you explain a little bit the impact that you've seen with regard to, of course, the general elections, and of course, it has a spillover effect generally also.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Basically, disinformation and hate speech is really dangerous for this society. I have filed this story, and this is the report. It's based on the report prepared by the Digital Right Foundation, DRF. They analyzed almost 225 posts during the period of November 2023 to March 2024 across the country. And they found that out of these, 163 were falling in the category of generated disinformation, which were largely they attacked on the basis of gender. And there was a hate speech, and some of the posts were aiming and targeting the journalists. All those journalists who were covering those elections, the trolls were issuing posts and placing posts at different social media platforms. Actually, the problem is in such circumstances where there is a polarization at its peak, actually it hurts the truth, and it makes life of journalists and as well as the political activists difficult. So the problem is that there is a need to curb this kind of disinformation and hate speech, because we live in Pakistan, and it's ironic that if a journalist cannot do his professional work because these kind of disinformation and hate speech and trolling and all kind of these issues. So this report really is helpful.
A safe space for those that give out information, like journalists, of course. Let me go to Muneeb and then I'll come back to you. Muneeb, can you hear me?
Yes.
Muneeb, we've also, we know that there is legislation in the field as far as protection is concerned, and we've seen the reaction to that. Again, the question is, how does, where does the balance come in? Because on the one hand, of course, we have statistics that support the fact that there is this disinformation, that support the fact that there is frequent use of it, that support the fact that it is being used also, one can say, in a rather targeted manner. And yet, there are those that don't agree with this legislation. How do you look at that? And as a lawyer, where do you think the chips should fall, so to speak?
Well, it's PICA law came into being in 2016, first of all, and then there have been series of legislations trying to work it out even further, trying to add on to PICA legislation, and there have been actually a lot of criticisms by the very same Digital Rights Foundation, which has issued this report regarding disinformation during the February 2024 election. And most of the criticism, I think, it centers around, so it's not against the idea of regulating misuse of social media, not against the idea of taking peddlers of disinformation, misinformation to task in a legal manner. But I think it's more about transparency as to whether the standards set by the legislation, be it PICA or PICA amendments, are those being applied in a transparent manner? Are you able to gain the trust of the public at large, the confidence of the public, and also more so, while drafting such legislation, is there input being taken from those who are going to be affected the most? By which I mean to say, the civil society, human rights organizations, NGOs, because these organizations, they have a tendency to bring uncomfortable truths to light. So there has to be balancing act. We need to protect particularly vulnerable people, be those ethnic minorities, religious minorities, from being bullied, from being harassed because of somebody's political agenda. And as the report has mentioned, that even women in politics, more so women in politics actually, including somebody in a position of power like the Punjab CM, she has been made a target of misogynistic cyberbullying or misogynistic posts or disinformation. So yes, people in position of power, particularly women, and as well as people from among the wider society, from among the civil society, from among the journalist community, they have all been targets of disinformation and hate campaign. And so we unfortunately, it's been like 8 years that PICA has been there. So why has this menace not been able to be dealt with? Perhaps we need to ensure that those who have the power to enforce these laws are actually setting the priorities right. And I think that if that is settled,
when we talk about, you've just mentioned that this is sometimes, in some cases, those that are in power are more vulnerable with regard to this kind of disinformation. And we've seen that in the past. There are cases in point on that. And yet, why is there, as far as implementation is concerned, why are there so many hurdles? Why have we, like you also mentioned, not been able to deal with the hitches as far as implementational issues are concerned?
That's because the procedure of implementing the laws which we have and which we are even envisaging, they're not very streamlined. So the thing is that particularly when women complain about being harassed, somehow the system, at least what I've read from and heard from those women themselves, has not been very welcoming towards them. So we need to find out that these laws, are they sensitive towards particularly vulnerable communities, be those communities.
Muneeb, but is it, sorry, I'm going to interject, but is it about the fact that the laws are not necessarily sensitive to perhaps women or those that are more vulnerable, or is it about the fact that the general attitudes also, unfortunately, across the board are not particularly sensitive to the plight of, for example, women, and the way that the law deals with them, the way that those that are supposed to implement the law look at them, or the attitudes generally speaking? That's really relevant, no?
Both these points are interrelated. So I totally agree, and you're absolutely right. The thing is that the law needs to be much more victim oriented, in the sense that the wrong needs to be looked at, and the standard of assessing whether illegal wrong was committed, particularly in our context through the means of internet or social media. We need to see that from the point of view of the person who has been affected. So if, for example, it's a woman who's complaining that she has been harassed or bullied on internet, or she's been made target of some extremely damaging artificial intelligence or deep fake, then the law itself should adapt to that particular point of view, or the point of view of those who are most vulnerable to misuse of social media, misuse of internet, who are most vulnerable to cyber crimes. And we also need to make sure that those who are tasked with implementing these laws, enforcing these laws, they are also receiving training, so that they become sensitized to the ones who bring their complaints to them. Unfortunately, I don't think that the problem is with the law per se. On paper, the idea of targeting hate speech, the idea of targeting disinformation, and making sure that these do not happen with impunity, and there's no immunity for the perpetrators. While I agree with that vision, the problem really comes at the enforcement stage, that because the people for whom such laws have been made, if they don't feel that the system is welcoming enough, then of course it's not been the success that it was meant to be, and there's considerable scope for improvement. So I am very much in favor of legislation, but it should be meted out, it should be implemented in a manner which is sensitive to the victims, and I'm using the word victim, not just survivors, because those who go through cyberbullying, those who become the objects and the subjects of disinformation, they really see themselves as victims.
Muneeb,
So if those principles,
one of the issues, as far as when we talk about, for example, libel and slander, is that in most cases the damage, so to speak, has already been done. With the way that
yes,
PICA treats these issues, is the treatment slightly different? How is it?
What PICA does is it adds another ground for liability, actually, as far as libel and slander are concerned, because we've already got prison sentences in Pakistan Penal Code for criminal defamation. And then there's also civil liability under the defamation ordinance. And what PICA does is it adds another layer of actually criminality, because PICA, particularly Section 20 PICA, which has been very controversial in its own right, the punishments are very severe. But that's the point. Those who have actually been defamed, and in the most damaging manner, have they been heard, or do they feel that they have been left unheard and unprotected? That's the question. And because if these laws are misused, we have laws there, and actually in the rest of the jurisdictions, in foreign jurisdictions, there's a trend that defamation is as a criminal offense, it's becoming redundant. It only incurs civil liability, but in Pakistan it's actually a criminal offense even under PICA laws. But the thing is that those who actually defame others misuse these laws and claim, in fact, it's them who have been defamed. And they happen to be a lot of times in positions of power. So people who are vulnerable, particularly because of their gender, their religion, their ethnicity, or their class, etc., they need to feel that their reputation, that their safety, all these things are being protected. So on paper, the law is fine. The law is fine. Perhaps proportionality, yeah, that needs to be looked at. Whether the penalties for committing defamation, libel, slander, are they proportionate to the aim that is being envisaged? But by and large, I agree with the fact that the means of internet are used in the most damaging way towards particularly vulnerable individuals, and libel and slander, they need to be dealt with by the authorities. But are they being dealt with at all? And secondly, if they are they being dealt with proportionately? If these concerns are being, if they are addressed, then I think that there could be something constructive which could be achieved in the end.
Let me come back to you. Let me go to Zahid Saab. Zahid Saab, this, as far as the role of political parties is concerned, as far as the role of paid narratives is concerned, how, when you look at this report, what does it highlight in your opinion?
I think, obviously, Mahrukh, it indicates that how fake news has become a challenge and threat to any state anywhere in the world, because it's very hard to escape misleading information and fake news or narrative. But yes, obviously we can be better and spotting and stopping and these collective responsibility. And one thing is very important, that smartphone and the digital world, it looks almost that everybody is a journalist. He or she is sharing information, whatever he has in his mobile set. So it's very difficult. But on the other hand, we always talk about freedom and freedom of expression, freedom of press everywhere in the world, here in Pakistan as well. But the responsible people should also understand, particularly the journalists and the lawmakers and uh, those who have in public domain or having any public office, should be responsible
Let
when
me
we talk.
let me read here. I want to read a little bit. It says, disinformation during the elections had profound impacts, shaping public opinions. Manipulated narratives and fake news created false perceptions about political figures and parties, influencing voters' decisions. Polarizing society, rampant hate speech and trolling campaigns deepened political divides, fostering hostility among communities. Disinformation campaign eroded trust in democratic institutions, raising questions about the integrity of the electoral process. In your opinion, when we look at these three, for example, isn't it, to what degree does it happen everywhere in the world? Is it, are we experiencing, and is it normal what we are experiencing, or what we experienced during the elections to some extent?
Obviously, in developing countries, it's not normal, and it affects. During the election, we also seen many fabricated graphics and victories and results went viral on social media, and particular party was creating unrest and showing their voter that they have swept the election. But obviously, the digital war and the building narrative on digital platform, we also have seen in America as well, particularly in their elections, even when one of ex owner also did it all on its social media platform. So it's very difficult. But I was talking about we should show the responsibility, because when we talk about freedom on at any forum, we forget that freedom comes with responsibility. So it's in Pakistan, in recently I was talking about D Chalk, that many member parliament, even I can name them, that they were making false claim, having no feet, that they were saying that hundreds of people died off, and what happened this, and they later on even claimed that they were right in saying this and making such claims. So it's uh, absolutely hurting the society when particular things are happening. And I think we all have seen it, what happened in Lahore, that when there was a claim of about a young girl in a college or in a school, in education institution. It's absolutely nothing on the ground. There was no truth in it, and even such claims, if we go back a little bit, that claims were made that some female prisoner in jail, they were obviously mistreated. I would not be able to use such words, that, but they built the narrative on social media that even the international community and even the many organizations had taken up such issues and condemned this, which actually had no truth in it. So this is obviously, it's a narrative war, and everybody and every political party here in Pakistan. And this is the only reason, recently, uh, what happened to the nation building theories, what happened to other things, and about they're just lies are floating like an ocean. And we as a journalist try to figure out the truth,
Let me come back to
which
you. I agree with you. I think that it becomes difficult for, of course, the journalists also. And let me come back to you. We have with us Fakhar Yousafzai, who's a senior journalist. Fakhar Saab, thank you for joining us. Fakhar Saab, another issue with underdeveloped countries like Pakistan, for example, is that we, as a society, a large, section, I would say most of the society is, of course, uneducated, a huge number of it. And for them to decipher between what is fake, what is real, becomes more of a challenge, and therefore, more polarization and more wrong information seeps into society. So what do you think is the solution? Are more stringent laws the solution? Is, of course, curing or implementation, of course, needs to be worked on. But then free society, how much of it can be free in this kind of a climate overall?
First of all, I will talk about the laws in Pakistan regarding the social media. As Muneeb mentioned that the PICA Act is here from 2016 to 2024. I think so we have 4 or 5 time amendment in that. I think so we have so many laws for the social media as well as for the electronic media. We have PAMRA, we have Cyber Crime Department of FIA, so many things. But what the thing is, what we did in the past, I will talk about all the political parties or the other stakeholders of Pakistan, what we did 4 or 5 years ago from 2018 or from, we should start from 2013 or 14 with the PTI was in rise after 2014 Dharna. They have started to use the social media as a tool. But I think so the other party didn't do that. This is the first thing, how we use it. And the second thing is you are talking about the freedom of the society. I think so I was reading a report of this year in 2024 that Pakistan was on 150th number last year, but right now Pakistan is on 152 number out of 180 countries in the freedom of expression and freedom of speech. I think so we are going down. We have all these laws, but I think so we are not using that properly. As the Zahid Gishkori sub mentioned, so many journalists is coming under that laws, which I think so the new laws about the fake news and things like that. I think so the government and the other stakeholder, I mean to say the journalist community as well as our youth, we should teach them. I think so this is very important for all the society, for all the country, that we should teach to our youth, to our in our institution, in our I mean to say in our assemblies, National Assembly and as well as the Provincial Assembly, as well as the role of our media. We are also responsible, I mean to say me and you and other people. Muneeb is here, Zahid Gishkori Saab is our senior, he is here. I think so our role is also very important. But I think so who will decide this? For someone, one news is a fake news for someone, but for the other one it's a real or a genuine news.
Because it's about towing narratives, right?
Yeah.
And how much of it is allowed, how much of it is not allowed, how much of it should be allowed.
Yeah.
Those are the questions. I think I'll go to Muneeb with this. Muneeb, how would you respond to that? What Fakhar Saab is saying. He's saying that where is the truth and what is the truth then? Because it invariably seems to be whatever suits whoever. At this time, if we look at the media, unfortunately, or we look at the way that it is given out.
Absolutely, and I think that this question has plagued generations. It's not just something that we face with in this day and age. Of course, it's become much more pronounced today because of the advent of social media. The speed at which information can now spread. And then, automatically as a result, disinformation can spread. It's unprecedented. So the scale of, it's a scale which is different. Otherwise, the, idea of or the concept of having to find the truth, that has always been there. So it becomes even more important today in our time that disinformation is countered, and at the same time, access to information, freedom to access information, and freedom of expression. These freedoms are protected, and not only protected, but encouraged and promoted. And that is the kind of legislation that we need. Of course, legislation itself is open to interpretation, but by and large, I think that legislation, if it has to benefit anyone, it needs to be in the benefit of those who, as I've said in my previous response as well, most vulnerable. And in Pakistan, as even this report has confirmed, even women in positions of power are not safe. As compared to the male counterparts, they are more likely to be targets of either aggressive hate campaign or otherwise misogynistic, because of course misogyny is always only ever directed against women, misogynistic campaigns. And for
Muneeb,
that,
but
we
what
need
about
more women,
how
for
would you
example.
compare? How would you compare it to societies, for example, in the US? And we saw the
That's a very
elections
good
just
question.
now.
Yeah.
How would you
Yeah.
how
So
would
you
you
know what?
look at
Yeah.
that?
There is not much difference actually. Even though societies are grappling with how to make sense of the extremely easy flow of disinformation. So just right now, just a couple of hours before, there's been controversy in Germany, where the owner of the social media platform X, Elon Musk, he's just tweeted in favor of a far right party, AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, saying that only AfD can save Germany. The same Elon Musk is also giving donations to Reform UK, which is a far right party in the United Kingdom. And that same Elon Musk is also going to be, in all probability, holding a position in the incoming American US Trump administration. So I think that this is one of the issues, not just in Pakistan, but also all across the globe. That powerful corporate sector, powerful corporate gurus, now they are the ones with the most money. They are the ones who decide what kind of information is put out, what kind of information influences people and is spread like wildfire. Now, this report by the Digital Rights Foundation with respect to the Pakistan election 2024. Uh, this report suggests that in Pakistan, PTI spent the most on social media, around 25 million rupees. Is there transparency? Do we know the sources of these funds? Where did they come in from? These are the kind of questions to which we need a follow up. We need to understand, because who are these people? Who are these people that are funding the information that we receive on a daily basis, and not just on a daily basis, actually by minutes and by seconds? Because let's not forget that in the US 2016 election as well, and the Brexit referendum in the UK, the Cambridge Analytica revelations are damning. So this is what we need to be for. This is what we need to follow. For example, just now I'm very concerned that somebody called Richard Grenell is constantly tweeting, posting in favor of PTI. How come that people sitting abroad, they feel that they have the license to interfere in Pakistan's internal politics? I mean, they wouldn't like if we were to do that with them. So where's this money coming from? What are the sources of these funds, of these donations, which are helping certain political parties to further their political agenda? Because if it's used in a wrong manner, which it is definitely being used, even in Pakistan it is, then unfortunately it's people at large, it's the electorate which suffers the most, because their decisions are being influenced from external sources and nothing is in their control.
Let me go to Syed. Syed, this, I hope you heard what Muneeb is saying. He's saying that the source of these funds which are used to give out this information becomes an issue, right? And where are they coming from? How are they influencing, and why are they influencing our, the voters and their minds? So where do we go to get these answers then, in your opinion?
You have taken up this program on a very, very alarming issue, because recently I went through a research that gender based influence of fake news threats. 71% are women, who remain the victim of this fake news in this digital world here in Pakistan. It shows that the psychological impact and our societal impact, and obviously the lack of education to understand these digital gadgets and digital tools in this modern world. But obviously, government have been framing new laws and introducing uh, uh, almost twice in a year new laws to challenge this fake news uh, threat. But one thing is important, that we have enough laws, I think, and if government wants to go for further legislation on this particular PICA Act, uh, they have already been, I think, engaging different persons and institutions, and they should increase the engagement, I think. They should engage journalists, they should engage social media influencers, they should engage women right activists, they should engage, obviously, lawyers to make this law absolute productive rather than to become a vindicative or just to earn the more criticism from different quarters. But yes, as it remains a challenge, this fake news factor, it's hurting the institution credibility and the whosoever, whenever and wherever he or she wants to write something or criticize something unnecessarily, they can do. And this freedom is dangerous.
if we look, I think, what Muneeb has spoken about with regard to women, and it's not because of course it just the images and the content, and we've seen, I think Fakhar Saab and Muneeb and you would agree that overall careers and have and lives are destroyed by in a lot of cases content which is just plain misinformation, and it's too late. And invariably, even if you, again, Fakhar Saab, even if you do come out and the information is corrected, again the damage is done.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking about the mental health, we're not even talking about a family structure, we are not even talking about the trickle down effect to the children, all of that is it's right there. And also for a country like Pakistan, where we, of course, women are, like Muneeb said, the vulnerable element. Also not, we need more participation from women in all walks of life. This is another issue that makes them, it leads to the reverse of it, right? Yeah. So what do we do? And how do we deal with it? That's a question. And is it just the efficacy of laws and attitudes, or do we need deterrence, and we need stricter laws and implementation?
As I said in my first response, that we have so many laws that's very strict, I think. So 10 years of prison or...
But then the question is, if it's not going to be implemented, then are we, the efficacy is the question, right?
No, actually, you're talking about the female or colleagues in every walk of life. Of course, we need them everywhere. But I think so...
but overall, all vulnerable elements,
yeah, of course. We can talk about that. Sometime we talk with the cybercrime department people, we studied the different cases. Of course, that is very critical, as well as we talk about the Pakistani society everywhere. KP case in Punjab, Balochistan, or even Islamabad. The people are facing so many things. But I think so, government have laws, but I think so they are not able to implementing that. I think so. This is the main thing. Whenever the culprit is come in the court, there are no proper evidences or things like that, which is should be enough for to punish him or her. I think so it's very important. And one thing I will add, we are talking about the fake news and the misinformation and disinformation. I think so in Pakistan we need the free media, especially the electronic and print media, as well as we are not receiving the news by the proper news channel like a PTV.
But is it free, or is it too free?
No, I mean to say, I am not talking about that free, that if someone, for example, someone sitting there or abusing someone, no, this is not a freedom of expression. I will never support that. But I think so, the free mean the news should come from the right place, and that should be on air like that. I think this is very important.
But and do we need more checks then, Zahid Saab? Do we need more checks? And when
we talk about freedom, we forget it comes with responsibility. And the one most important particular point I think I want to add to this debate, that we being Muslim state, being Muslim country, because I have done a program on this fake news narrative and fake news last week. So I spoke to professors of different universities, particularly from Islamic International University, that how is how exactly Islam teaches us to not only speak the truth about certain matters and about everything, but here the problem on social media and this digital form, even in this mobile format, that we don't know even the facts. We are just sharing and we are spreading lies without knowing and understanding that either this narrative is based on fact, either this is harmful for the state, for the institution, for anybody else. I can count one most important example about a very popular and famous uh, news anchor, even news a journalist. I don't want to name her, but there was a narrative being built against her. So many women, particularly here in Pakistan, who are popular, having public space, and people are just talking about them and going through deep, AI generated videos and even audios and commenting, and they are hurting their characters and everything. And until the truth proved, until the institution completed the investigation, either it's true or not, their characters and everything suffered and suffered a lot. There is no make good of it. So this is the problem as a state, and this is the problem. Even institution cannot handle it. I am talking about FIA or other institution, because 0.5 million, 5 lakh, 5 million complaints received to FIA in a year, and it cannot handle such complaints. Mostly, more than 70% were based on this defamation, just lies, and about the character assassination of persons, and 71% about women. So it's very dangerous. So we need to stop it, and the state should form an authority. I think they already have decided to form a separate authority to handle such flow of information on social media. So it's the right time. I think they should take the decision. And people, it's a collective responsibility. What should state can do if you look into it?
Okay, Zahid Sahab, let me, unfortunately, we're also running out of time. I want to take Muneeb's input on this and yours also. What is that one thing that if the state does today, in your opinion, let's say that it would make it much more difficult for this kind of disinformation to come out? Ji, Muneeb?
So you want me to answer this? Or I think that you need to define through means of legislation that what is it that distinguishes free speech and freedom of expression from hate speech, because we focus too much on what is defamation, what is libel, what is slander, but I think that the burning issue of the day is just how easy it has become to use hate speech, and we need a definition of hate speech along the lines of that whosoever through their words, spoken or written, is likely to incite violence against unarmed individuals and communities, either because of their race or their gender or their religion or their ethnicity, etc., is going to be subject to penalty, would have committed a criminal offense, something along those lines. Because unfortunately, right now it's become very easy for people to say whatever they want to say, to risk others' lives, and then to say, oh, this is my constitutional right to freedom of expression. No, there are certain limits to it, but those limits are not well defined. I think that is very much important right now.
Right. Fair enough. Thank you so much for being with us. Fakhar Yousafzai, thank you for joining us. Muneeb Qadir Saab, thank you for being with us. Zahid Gishkori Saab, thank you for your very valuable input. Mehtab Haider Saab, thank you for being with us. Of course, when we discuss and look at where we are, one of the main challenges that we face as a society, whether we look at the political realm, whether we look at the personal realm, is that of disinformation, misinformation. And how we tackle it, of course, has to be multifaceted. It can't be in one way, it can't be on one platform, it can't be on one level, and it has to come from all sections of society. If we talk about implementation, of course there are challenges and we need to work on those, but so are, there are ample challenges in attitudes, there are ample challenges in the way that we deal with this information, the way we process it, the way that we filter it. So all of those are issues that we need to work on together. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.